Good morning. Happy Friday. Welcome into Let's Bet It. Lauren Jabbar here with Jared Smith. It is presented by our friends at Superbook Sports. Jared, how are we this morning? It is almost Christmas. I know you don't celebrate Christmas, but happy holidays.
Yeah, Christmas for me is usually Chinese food and movies over the years. Although this will be a bit of a different Christmas with it being a Sunday, so probably no movies, maybe Chinese food, but NFL games all
A
day.
lot of sports.
But yeah, a lot of sports going on, and I'm super excited for Scott to come on today and talk a little NBA Christmas Day because that's probably the first day of the season that I it's gonna sound crazy coming from me, considering you're basically knee deep in it, but I haven't capped or even looked at one NBA game or box score or anything yet though so far this season. So this will be the first dive for me into that. Um, and yeah, it should be a fun weekend. Very festive.
Yeah,
Beautiful weather here in
we
Vegas
are.
too. Sorry to rub it in, everyone, but I'm loving this weather here in Vegas this
That's
week.
great. Good for you, Jared. That's
Yeah, I'm
awesome. I
sorry.
know.
Sorry, not
No, yeah,
sorry.
you talk about NBA. We're at game 33 of 82
Yeah.
tonight. The Hawks take on the Pistons. So we are in the thick of it with that schedule, and I am feeling the effects of it for sure. I am a
But you're the
tired
star
gal,
of the
but that is
show. I just watch from the sidelines and try to win money. You're the star. You need to be
oh,
engaged and invested.
oh, a
I'm
thousand
just the
percent. I'm
peon
just
that
tired. I'm
watches.
excited. I have Christmas
Yes.
Eve and Christmas Day completely off. It's actually like my first 2 full days off in a very long time. So very, very
You
excited
deserve it.
for it. Just gonna
You deserve
hang
it.
out with family, watch
You deserve it.
sports, and just chill, which I'm so excited about. You also want to know
You
who has
deserve
no
it.
chill? Is the Jaguars last night as they absolutely
Ugh.
trounced. I'm sorry, your New York Jets. Sorry about your Jets, Jared, but that was an ugly game. It was 19-3 in favor of the Jags. With that win for the Jags, though, we saw their playoff chances jump to 56.1%. I have a couple questions. Trevor Lawrence,
Lay it
he
on me.
truly is looking like a legit playoff quarterback. I know it was bad weather, but he threw
Yeah.
for 229 yards, ran for 51, had a rushing touchdown too. Is he looking more legit, especially these last 4 or 5 weeks or so?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
again, another turnover free performance. He threw an
Yeah,
interception against the Cowboys last week, but that was it. I mean, I guess actually I take that back. Not a turnover free performance because he did fumble on like the first play of the game. But an interception free performance, which at the end of the day, if you were going to ask me what matters more to a quarterback, fumbles when you're getting sacked by 300-pound linemen, which really not fully in your power, or interceptions when you're staring down a defense making a throw and it's terrible and it gets intercepted. So I think the interceptions is really what was impressive, and we've talked about this a lot. Um, Heading into the year, the under on his interceptions prop. I mean, he
yeah,
threw the most in the league last year at Fort, so it was a very high number at 14 and a half this year. And the handicap with Doug Peterson and, bringing in
yeah.
the cast of characters that they brought in with Ingram and Christian Kirk in free agency, and you bring in Brandon Sheriff and Cam Robinson, offensive lineman, and all of a sudden you see his interception total plummet. He's only thrown 7, and we've only got 3 games left in the year. So actually 2 games left now. It's week 17 and 18 for them. So that prop is cashed, and that's an impressive because it didn't only cash; it's going to cash by 3, 4, 5, 6 maybe interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
So he's taken a massive step forward. You see the body language, and last night was a perfect example of that. First drive of the game, sack, strip, fumble. Defense gets the stop, holds them to a field goal. They get the ball right back and they drive right down the field and they keep it
Absolutely.
for basically the entire first quarter. And they kick a field goal, tie it up, and then the defense continues to get stops. Zach Wilson, awful. And the next drive, they're up 10-3, and then all of a sudden they're up 10 at halftime and really should have been up 13. They missed a field goal at the buzzer for in the first half, and that was it. I mean, the game was really over at that point. And I credit Doug Peterson. He clearly watched the Lions game film from last week. The one place where the Jets are vulnerable on defense is in the flats and off
Mm-hmm.
of RPOs. Like you didn't see Goff run a lot of RPOs last week, but the big play on offense for the Lions was that little play action in the flat to the tight end touchdown. And you just saw so many flat routes and quick hitters, get the ball out quick. Trevor Lawrence's ADOT last night, his average depth of target was significantly lower than what it normally is. It was about 5 yards. And that shows you just how efficient he was, because the other numbers were fantastic, but he wasn't pushing the ball down the field because he didn't want to. There was no need to. That's not
Well,
what
he
the
didn't have
game
to. Yeah.
plan called for. So
Mm-hmm.
execution, everything was fantastic for the Jags last night, and the Jets are back to being the Jets. Zach Wilson
Yeah,
can't play anymore, and it's
that
a disaster right now.
Jacksonville's won 3 straight games now. They've won 5 of their last 7. They're pushing for the playoffs at this point. I feel like maybe Zach Wilson is done in New York. Your thoughts before we bring in Scal?
Completely done. You can't start this guy anymore.
You think he's done? He's done.
If you're getting replaced by Chris Streveler, and Chris Streveler comes into the game, and all of a sudden the offense finds a spark, this guy can't throw. And listen, I love Chris Streveler. He's a great story, comes from the Canadian Football League, like all that great stuff. But he is literally the quarterback that you bring in to run the Wildcat, curveball plays. And you're bringing him in, and all of a sudden he's throwing it down the field, and he's completing passes to wide open receivers. And Zach Wilson is not doing any of those things during his first 2.5, 3 quarters at the helm. I don't understand how you can go back to him after that. I think, and again, I don't think the Jets as a team did him any favors last night. They couldn't run the ball. They couldn't stop the Jaguars' offense. So I don't put it all on his shoulders, but I watched every snap of that game last night, and Zach Wilson, there was not one moment when he looked comfortable on the field. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure underneath, I don't know what it's like to have 60, 70,000 people booing me every time I move a muscle. I'm sure that's a very unsettling feeling. I mean, I get upset when 20, 30 people troll me on Twitter for picks. I can't imagine what 60,000 people booing me would feel like. So I'm sure that snowballed throughout the course of the game. But you can't put this guy back on the field. He can't throw the ball. He can't complete a pass. He can't run the offense. He can't execute the simple things it takes to make an offense, run well. So I don't think he could play anymore.
I wonder if people would say the same thing if Breece Hall was still in the lineup and they were finding some sort of maybe offensive success through him. Like maybe if the run game opens up a little bit more, then the passing game opens up a little bit more, and having that, dual threat option. Like Zach Wilson was sacked 3 times yesterday in the amount of time that he played on the field. It's like he's not really getting any protection either, and he doesn't feel like he has that much time to throw the ball. Is it all on him?
No, of course not. It's definitely not all on him. I agree with you. The offensive line was terrible. They couldn't run the ball.
Horrible.
But again, at the end of the day, I think you just have to watch. Like if your eye test is telling you that Chris Streveler looks better, like they couldn't run the ball. Like it's not like the offensive line suddenly changed when Streveler came in. He just gave the team a spark, and I think that shows how they. It's such a weird spot because I don't want to say that the Jets like aren't the same team with Zach Wilson. They are. Like you put Zach Wilson on the field, you take him out, you put Chris Streveler on. He's just one of 11. Like the other 10 guys are still the same, personnel. But for some reason, they're not playing well with Zach. Maybe they don't believe in him. Maybe he's not commanding the huddle like he should. I'm not there on the field. I'm not there on the sidelines. I don't know those specifics. But from what I'm looking at, there was an obvious shift when you take Wilson off and put Streveler on. And that shouldn't happen because Streveler should be in for 2 or 3 plays, run the ball, get him out. But the Jets moved the ball the best they moved it all night with him on the field, throwing it too. Like his throwing numbers were better than Zach Wilson's. And that is, to me, the final straw. You can't have this guy on the field anymore. Clearly, the Jets just are not the same football team, focused, excited, unlike our next guest, who's all of those things.
Yeah. Speaking of, let's bring him on in, and he doesn't need an explanation. He doesn't need a bio. It's our guy, Brian Scalabrine, to chat NBA. Longtime friend of the show. Good to have you back, Scal. It's been
all right. Can you hear me? Yes or no?
Yeah, we hear you.
perfect because, I'm like transitioning from one show to the next. I just wanted to make sure everything was good. So, yeah, how you guys doing?
I'm good. How are you, Scal?
Life's good. Life's good. NBA is in full effect. There's a lot of good storylines going on, and the fact that like the Boston Celtics have come back to earth a little bit, it opens up the Eastern Conference, which I think in general everybody is kind of likes the NBA when it's a little bit more wide open.
Yeah, it is crazy to think that the Magic came on in there. They got 2 wins over the Celtics, and then they came to Atlanta. We played them. We got a narrow win over them, but that was pretty crazy. There's 5 games going on Christmas in the NBA. Let's start it out with the Sixers, take it on the Knicks. The Knicks had a rough start to the season. They've been on a little bit of a tear recently. What are you expecting from that game? The Sixers lay in 2 points, and that total set just under 220.
Yeah, so Philadelphia is also playing a lot better. I think the whole like middle bottom part of the Eastern Conference has all jumped up. So yeah, the Knicks are playing better basketball. It's a decent matchup for them. The Knicks defense is now what you would expect from a Tom Thibodeau team. But here's what I always look at. Like when I think about like Christmas Day games, I always look for the stars. Like the stars have something to prove. When I was a player and it was a Christmas Day game, it was like, oh man, I got to balance my family coming to town and tickets, and my kids got to open presents and all that stuff. So it became like a little overwhelming for a mediocre, middle of the road, bottom, bench warmer, right? But stars, they want to perform on this day. They want to show the world. They know the world is watching. You have all-star bids up for grabs. You have all NBA. You have MVP stuff up for grabs. So I really like the Philadelphia 76ers in this one, and I really like Joel Embiid to have sort of that historic performance. Like for him to drop 40, it would not surprise me at all. If you want to run some of the over-unders, look for the stars that are like have something to prove. Like so, you look at like a Jason Tatum, you look at like even in a weird way like a LeBron James. In this one, to me, it feels like it's Joel Embiid's night. I got the Sixers covering, and I don't know about the over/under, but I will take the Sixers giving 2.
Speaking of stars, I mean, I think this game has the most star power, perhaps, of the Christmas Day games. You get Luka, you get LeBron, even though the Lakers maybe not quite the Lakers of old. But I'm excited to watch this one. What do we expect Lakers Mavs?
Were you surprised that I've got 7.5? Lakers getting 7.5. Lakers getting 8. Those are insane numbers for like Dallas that doesn't run. Like if you look at Dallas and the way that they play their pace, you would think that, like 4 points. You would think 3.5. They would win, but it's like, oh man, how much are they going to win by? It could be a close game. LeBron is there, star. So if LeBron plays, and another guy, by the way, I do think the Lakers are much better when Austin Reeves is out there. So I would keep my eye out if Austin Reeves is a go, because he's been teetering back and forth with an ankle injury. But I do think that I'll take the Lakers. I'm not sure they're going to win the game, but 7.5 seems like a lot. So I'll take the Lakers getting the points and maybe losing the game, maybe winning the game. You never know with LeBron, but I just think that's a lot of points for the Dallas Mavericks, who play extremely slow.
This is the game that I'm most excited about. It's the Bucks Celtics, the top 2 teams in the Eastern Conference right now. The Celtics laying 4 points. Is this an Eastern Conference final preview, possibly? Because this is going to be a really exciting game between 2 star-studded teams.
Yeah, no question that you like the potential of this matchup. I just think every time you get these marquee matchups, like players nowadays don't hate players like they did back in the day. And so like the Bucks aren't going to come out and say we got to make a statement against the Celtics. So I think there's a lot of hype to this game. And I do believe that when these 2 teams match up in the playoffs, it's going to be an absolute bloodbath. There's no doubt about it. When you think of the physicality of the Bucks and you think of the skill and of the Celtics and the pace and the space that they have played with in the past, not really lately. But I do like the Celtics to win, to cover this game, and I do like this game to go over. Like the way the Celtics play with Brook Lopez in that drop coverage, and Al Horford's hanging out on the perimeter. The physicality of the Bucks, you cannot adjust to that. They won't be able to adjust to the speed of the game where the Celtics are playing. So take the over in this game. I think the over is a little bit low. I could see like a 123, 127 type of game. I don't see this thing being like a 109, 115 type of game. So I like the over in this, and I like the Celtics getting back on track after the embarrassing losses to Orlando and Indiana. They need to get themselves back to being a premier powerhouse in the Eastern Conference. Both teams, the Bucks and the Celtics, have both talked about wanting home court advantage. No better way to make up home court advantage than at home against a team that you know is going to have a good record. So take the Celtics, take the over in the game.
Yeah, and Boston's lost 3 in a row too, so we'll see what happens Friday night. But I would imagine that win streak or that losing streak is going to be something they want to put in their rearview mirror. If the playoffs started today, Scal, the Warriors would be out, not even in the play-in game. That is mind-boggling to me. Obviously, I don't think that's going to continue over the course of the long haul of the season, but they've got a game against that first place, tied for first place team in the Memphis Grizzlies. What do we vibe here in this one?
All right, so to speak your language, right? If you had Tom Brady as a quarterback, would you run an option offense?
No.
Okay, so here's the problem. The Warriors, all their all their bottom guys last year, Bjelica, Gary Payton, Otto Porter, Iguodala at times, all those guys were really good, and they fit in really well with their system. Now we're talking James Wiseman, Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga. Definitely more talented than any of the names. I mean, maybe Iguodala in his prime, but definitely more talented. But the Warriors' bottom group was supposed to support the top group during this stretch. And they're incapable of running offense that takes high-level read reaction. They never grew up playing this. They grew up, here's the ball, go win us games, go score 40, go do this, go do that. It's not, hey, see this guy coming off the screen, if your guy hedges out, you need to slip, and Draymond Green's going to hit you. Like, that's not how they learned to play basketball. So what's happening with the Warriors is you got two things going on. You have one team, which is the old team that moves and shakes and cuts and all that stuff, and you have the other team that needs to play like traditional NBA offense. So that's not going to work for them, and it's never going to work as long as your team is about Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, which it should be. Those guys are not past their prime. Steph Curry right now is amazing. I don't care how old he is. He's still off the charts. He's like probably, you can make the argument, minus the injuries, like one of the most valuable player, top 3. So I don't think the Warriors are good because those supporting cast, what they're trying to develop, are not good. They're just not good basketball players for the Warriors. So the Warriors are going to continue to struggle until they decide to make a decision on, are you going to trade those guys? Are you going to kick the can down the road to maybe this offseason? But Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, even Kevon Looney, I'll throw him in there, are not going to win being supported by young players who can't play that system. So as long as the Warriors decide to keep going down this road, they're not going to be NBA champions. They're not going to be contenders. None of that stuff is going to happen. So it's not surprising to me that those guys aren't playing well. And it's not surprising if those guys aren't playing well that the Warriors are just an average basketball team.
Yeah, before I ask you about the last game, I just want to ask about Ja Morant for a second. Obviously, I think it was like last week, he got a tech, then he got tossed, and then he had his dad come out and FaceTime with the fans. Like, what are your thoughts on that whole situation in general?
So this is a big thing for me, right? And this is why it's funny in my life when people come up to me and they want to throw shade at what I was as a player or whatever. You want to throw shade that I sat the bench. You want to do any of that stuff, right? Like, I am who I am. And Ja Morant is who he is. He ain't worried about officials or people talking about him on social media. And in my era, there was a lot more of that. And Allen Iverson was a guy like that. Like, Allen Iverson, he was going to do him. Throwback jerseys, cornrows, tattoos, whatever he started, like this whole generation is following that, right? So the one thing I love about Ja Morant is he's Ja Morant, no matter if he's in Memphis, LA. He don't care that he's in a small market, he's going to be him. And he wants to tell his dad to go out there and apologize to fans because that's how authentically he feels. He's not doing it to get buzz on social media. He's just doing it because he's Ja Morant. That's what he feels like. And that's why I love him. And by the way, Nike is following this Ja Morant thing. And like the face of Nike moving forward will be Ja Morant.
It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. The last game on Christmas Day, the late game, we have the Suns taking on the Nuggets. The Suns are actually taking on the Grizzlies tonight before they take on the first place team in the West in the Denver Nuggets. Nuggets laying 2.5 points. Nikola Jokic coming off of that wild 40-point, 27-rebound, 10-assist game against the Charlotte Hornets. What are your expectations for this Denver Nuggets team? Are they the best team in the West, in your opinion, or do you think the Suns can upset them here on Christmas Day?
You know, interesting thing going on with Denver is, and I don't like to throw shade at a player, but all this winning, all this Nikola Jokic dominating, all the players like the Bruce Browns of the world and the Aaron Gordons of the world have thrived playing off of Nikola Jokic, and that's exactly the team that you should build. Jamal Murray's getting to his own. He's getting his feet underneath him. But the one guy, like the elephant in the room for the Denver Nuggets, is Michael Porter Jr. And when he plays, they just drop down to an average team with a really super talented player. So I don't know what they do. He just doesn't fit in so far with them. And you haven't seen them have consistent winning efforts with him being out there. I think he's coming back tonight. Today is Friday. And I think he will play on the Christmas Day game. So I'm curious, as good as Denver is, like they have to find a way to incorporate this amazingly talented young individual with this team that seems to be rolling right now. So I love Denver, but I'm always hesitant, especially on Christmas Day. I'm always hesitant on young superstar players inserting themselves back into a team that I find incredibly difficult to guard. Nikola Jokic leads the NBA in offensive rating. When he's on the floor, he is dicing and slicing defenses up because they got guys that cut. And the biggest thing is those guys that are cutting, those guys are embracing playing with Nikola Jokic. They have the it factor to be special, but can I just downshift until I watch Michael Porter Jr. play with this team before I decide to anoint them Western Conference champs?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Scal, we missed you. We're so
I don't know. All of a sudden I get emails, Scott, you're on the show on Friday. So whoever's the email god that's sending me on this show, can I get some more emails? Come on.
We got you, bud. I mean, listen.
No, it's not you.
You want to come talk college football playoff with us next week, maybe?
I'll talk anything you want to talk. I just know that the email from God that comes across my phone, it says be on the show at 10:10. You know I'm here. I'm here ready to rock.
Scal always shows up. He shows
you're
up
my
and
favorite
he's ready
guest.
to go. Scal, we hope you have a great holiday. Best of luck with your Celtics on Christmas Day and enjoy time with your family.
All right. We'll see you guys.
Happy holidays, Scal.
That is.
He is back, baby.
Brian Scalabrine, Celtics analyst for NBC Sports, Boston NBA insider betting analyst for Pickswise, and a longtime friend of the show. I know we're going to bring in Tim Murray in a second to chat about the bowl games going on today. But before we do, Jared, just a quick rundown of each of them. We have the Independence Bowl, Houston taking on Louisiana. Houston laying 7 points in that spot. That total is set at 56.5. Then we have the Gasparilla Bowl. My dad, did you just hear that? My dad was calling me. He should know that I am on the show.
He should.
Dad, what are we doing right now?
Gary, gosh.
Yeah.
Wasn't drinking enough of that whiskey that I bought him last month.
Yeah, seriously. Come on,
shots of that.
Then we have the Gasparilla Bowl. Wake Forest taking on Missouri. Wake Forest laying 2 points. That total set at 58.5. Let's go on over really quick the Independence Bowl. It's two teams who kind of want to have a positive ending to their season, right? Houston, many picked to win the American, finished 7-5. They were 1-7 against the spread as a favorite. Louisiana beat Texas State to earn bowl eligibility. I feel like, more motivation lies with Louisiana, just because they weren't necessarily bowl eligible. Now that they are, people kind of expected more out of Houston in the beginning of the season. What are your expectations for a game like this?
Yeah, this one's a weird one. Houston is vastly more talented. Vastly. Like, it's like not even close. Their quarterback is a star. He's been in the program for a long time. Nathaniel Dell, their star wide receiver, actually opted out of this game to go to the NFL, but then opted back in because he wanted to play one more game with his pal, Toon, quarterback for Houston. So we'll see what that looks like. But just like every other outdoor game that's taking place in the country this week, anywhere, I don't know, east of the Rockies, there is a massive cold front just gripping the country all across. And this game being played in Shreveport, the winds are going to be 10, 15, 20 miles an hour, temperatures in the teens and the 20s. I mean, honestly, any outdoor game this weekend, you need to really be in tune to what the weather forecast is, because the cold, the wind, this is the time of year when things get a little wonky. So Houston, my point being a very heavy pass offense, I don't know how they're going to react to that. This game is in about 3 hours or so. So we have a pretty accurate forecast of what the conditions will feel like in Shreveport for this one. So I kind of lean Louisiana catching 7. I think it's 7.5. That's where the market has kind of evaporated the hooks. I saw some 7.5s over the last 24 to 48 hours. All of them are gone. So clearly 7.5 is where the market appetite is for the Cajuns. And also, this is basically a home game for them. Shreveport and Lafayette, it's like a 3-4 hour drive. Houston's pretty close too. So I think weather dependent. I think both teams will be fully supported here, but I do agree. I think Louisiana maybe the slightly more motivated team.
I totally agree with you too. And I look at the storyline for this game for Houston. The story is Clayton Tune and Nathaniel Dell and how they kind of pair up quarterback wide receiver duo, which have the 12th highest passing rate in the country as a team. They really focus on that air raid. And then on the other side, I feel like that matches up really well with Louisiana secondary. I feel like this is going to be Louisiana secondary against Houston's offense at this point. The Raging Cajuns, their secondary has been their strongest unit all season. They ranked 21st in the nation in defensive passing success rate. At the end of the season, they ranked 12th in PFF coverage grade. Like, it just depends. Is the defense going to hold up for Louisiana?
Look at you dropping the analytical knowledge today.
I've been looking up stats, Jared. Well, here's the thing. Before the season started, I'm in a big bowl pool with my dad and my brothers, and there's like 100 people in it. And so I do like hardcore, intense statistical research before I fill out my bowl pool, because I actually want to do well. And I'm still like 3-8. I still suck. It's fine. Every year since I've been 8 years old, I've sucked at this bowl pool, but we try. So we'll see what happens. But the other bowl I'm looking forward to is Wake Forest taking on Missouri. Obviously, Wake Forest has an extremely dynamic passing game that could probably take advantage. They rank second in the ACC with 314.6 passing yards per game. Their offense in general is averaging 450 yards per game. Sam Hartman, the dude's a stud, right? He's led them to they've been scoring 36.8 points per game on the season. He has the second most touchdown passes in college football over the last 2 seasons. Missouri does have the better defense out of the 2 teams, so I feel like this is another one too, where it's Wake Forest offense going up against Missouri's defense, and who is going to hold up a little bit more, because Missouri only allowed 337.3 total yards per game, even playing in a loaded SEC this year. And they have 36 sacks on the season, which is the second most in the SEC. How do you see this game playing out?
Yeah, this is another strange one. Opt-outs for Mizzou are pretty prominent here, but their defense is also maybe one of the better defenses in the entire country this year. I mean, they held Georgia down. And I thought that was the one game when I watched that game, and then you watch what Georgia's offense did the rest of the year, you're like, damn, Missouri's defense is pretty good. So that's kind of the vibe here. If Missouri gives a crap, and if they can overcome some of their opt-outs. Their defensive coordinator also bolted. He's in Vegas now at UNLV. But this is a top 40 defense across the board. EPA per play, against the pass, against the rush, all top 40. And it's not like they played in a bad conference. They played in the premier conference, and they still put up those kind of numbers. But again, opt-outs, not really sure what the vibe is after that. They lost their top receiver. They lost 2 of their best defensive linemen. They lost, I believe, a safety as well. So, and their left tackle. So there's a lot of personnel issues for this Missouri team. But Sam Hartman, where's his focus at? And I think that's, there's no one better than breaking down the situational angles of these games than our next guest. So let's bring in Tim.
Bring him on in, baby.
And
Tim
let's get his
Murray,
thoughts on these games.
co-host of VSiN Prime Time, 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time in college football betting podcast. Timmy boy, how are we?
We're great, back in a service academy going against Jared last night. It was wonderful. It was a good
Same.
To be fair, after the first 10 minutes of the game, I tweeted out Baylor's is screwed, live bet Air Force. So I actually did make some money on the game, live betting Air Force. But good call, sir.
I'm just trying to.
He didn't trust me in the morning, so he had to go to you, and then he didn't trust you either, Jared.
Well, we're in a little competition on my show, so he's trying to make it ground. And,
I love it.
I'm trying to go against the grain here. Can't make up ground on these losers unless I, go contrarian.
It was. I'll be honest. On a gambling show, looking in the rear view never does anybody any good. But I didn't feel great when Troy Calhoun decided to go for it at midfield with a minute and a half to go. I started losing my mind because I'm like, you got all the momentum in the world.
Studio.
You go for it on 4th and 1 at midfield when the opposition is completely inept offensively. You give them short field, they score a touchdown. But fortunately, Air Force was able to bring it on home, another Service Academy win. But that's in the past. We now look to the future, and hopefully we can keep it rolling.
Absolutely. We got 2 bowl games going on today, which I'm excited about. Independence Bowl, Houston taking on Louisiana. Houston laying 7 points. That total is set 56.5. And I don't know if you agree with me here, Tim, but I said this is all about Houston's offense and Clayton Tune and Nathaniel Dell going up against Louisiana's defense, who has, one of the best defenses right now. They rank 21st in the nation in defensive passing success rate. They're really, really good against the air. Their secondary is one of their strongest units. Who do you think holds strong in a game like this? Louisiana might also have a little bit more of that motivation factor because they became bowl eligible their last week, where Houston finished the season 7-5 and kind of, didn't live up to expectations that people had for them this season.
Yeah, this is a Houston team, to your point, that was expected to contend for the AAC. They were one of the favorites to win this conference, and here they are at 7-5 playing in the Independence Bowl. Dana Holgorsen, at least at his time in West Virginia, kind of took an interesting route towards bowl games. Right, historically, he has not played and coached all that well. His teams are 2-7 ATS in bowl games, 3-6 straight up. This is just, I believe, his 3rd bowl game at Houston. So, the success and, we had the COVID season is kind of, we don't fully know, how they're going to be going into this game. So, personally, I don't have a play on this game, in pick'em pools or whatnot. If you're in those, I took the points with Louisiana, in one of those confidence pools. If you've got to pick the winner, I put like a very low total on Louisiana, maybe just to play a little contrarian to see if you could sneak out a couple points on that end, just because I've seen this bowl game play out where the bigger brand, so to speak, just doesn't want to be there. And, I remember 2019 vividly. Now, Miami versus Houston, I wouldn't say apples to apples comparison, but I remember seeing the bowl matchup of Louisiana Tech against Miami and being like, I don't think Miami's going to want to really show up here in Shreveport where it can get cold. So that's kind of my angle to it. Lauren, I think you went more of the statistical analysis is probably the smarter way to go. I like to look at all right, who's going to be excited to be, playing in Shreveport. I think the date helps because in years past, we've seen this game be like the day after Christmas where you could get really just guys who do not care. The fact is before Christmas, it's the middle of the day. Hopefully it won't be too cold. So, Houston's a better football team. I'll say this, I think the number, and Jared hears me say this all the time, the number tells you a story. And I thought there would be more backing in the market on Louisiana than there has been. I thought this would maybe dip through that key number of 7, and it's really kind of stuck hold there at 7. So I can't lay 7 with Houston, knowing Dana Holgorsen's, past, where he not really thrived in the favorite role in these bowl games, covering just 2 of the 9 bowl games he's coached. But I'm not racing to take the points with Louisiana, but I do like the angle a little bit that, Louisiana, kind of that home feel. Bizarre year. They've had quarterback issues, right? Wooldridge is hurt. So, not a game I'm racing to get involved in, but I would just say be careful laying it with the Cougars in this spot.
Yeah, and to your point, Holgerson, I've seen it everywhere, 2-7 against the spread in bowl games. Well, let's narrow it, 1-4 against the spread as a favorite. So even worse when he's in the favorite seat than when he's in the underdog role. So I think you're asking for trouble if you bet Houston in this game. Although I will say this, the motivational angle changed for me just a little bit. I bump up Houston just a little bit with Nathaniel Dell coming back. Like to me, that it's like, hey, they want one last trip around the sun. But then you look at the weather in Shreveport, 10, 15 mile an hour winds, 20 degrees. How effective is the passing game going to be? So those are all questions that I think are swirling around this game. And we'll see if Clayton is in tune, pun intended, with his offense. Hey, listen, I got to pay the bills around here somehow. All right, Wake Forest, Mizzou. We're kind of on opposite sides here, but I think I hate being on opposite sides of you, Tim, because usually we're on the same side. We think with the same brain. We're in our contest this year, even though we didn't win any money. I thought we had a pretty good year. But I do think the line movement was pretty telling here. Despite all the opt-outs for Mizzou, this still moved below the 3. And it kind of is, I don't want to say trending back that way. It kind of bounced back to 3 and then got bought back down. But it definitely, there's an appetite in the market for Missouri at 3. Despite the fact that they lost their defensive coordinator and their leading wide receiver and a bunch of starters on defense. And, and it's still Missouri's defense that I think wants to be here in this game. And we'll see just how much they want to be here in this game. And on the other side, you have Sam Hartman, who's probably been entertained and wined and dined by every Power 5 major conference team in the country over the last couple of weeks, trying to get him to leave Wake Forest. What's his focus level going to be for the Gasparilla Bowl? And you get Mizzou that gets a whole month to prepare for this slow mesh. So there is an interesting back and forth with this one. Where's your final take? And have you actually laid it with Wake, or is it just a contest play for you?
No, I took the money line. So -130 there. Okay. That's what I played at a book here in Las Vegas. So yeah, I'm on Wake Forest. Look, there's a lot of statistical backing to not play Wake Forest. ACC and bowl games, if you remove Clemson since 2019, 2-12 against Power 5 competition, that's not good. You look at the way they finished out the year, Wake Forest going 1-4 down the stretch. I kind of look at it, and I hear your angle of where is Sam Hartman's head at. I look at it this way. I think this is his send-off. Like, I'm out, adios one last time, around. And I thought it was pretty telling that, not only is Sam Hartman playing in this game, but his top wide receiver, A.T. Perry, is also playing in this game. A.T. Perry, 70 catches, 980 yards, 11 touchdowns this year. And, for Missouri, Eli Drinkowitz gets that 6th win in the final week of the season. That was a bet that, I loved. I love betting on teams trying to get the bowl eligibility. But they've got a lot of pieces, as Jared, you've talked about, right? Dominic Lovett just committed to Georgia yesterday. I mean, he's a big-time wide receiver. He's not playing in this game. Isaiah McGuire, DJ Coleman, Martez Manuel, all these guys have opted out. McGuire and Coleman combined for 13 sacks this year for Missouri. So, yes, they have proven to be one of the toughest teams. They have been certainly more battle-tested, I would say, than Wake Forest, beating Arkansas to close out the season to get to bowl eligibility. The game that they went to Gainesville and, covered against Florida after they had just lost to Georgia kind of opened my eyes. I thought that was a really easy fade of Missouri as a double-digit dog, back in October, and they played well and ultimately came up a touchdown short. So, yeah, I totally get the backing of Missouri, but sometimes I get interested, when the opt-outs happen, how much, and I don't envy odds makers. They're trying to figure out, okay, how much do we weigh an opt-out if it's not a, if it's not a quarterback, right? Or, what does a wide receiver mean? What does an edge rusher mean? These things add up. So you're starting to see the market, as you mentioned, Jared, kind of bump back a little bit. My assumption would be if this touches 3, because we're in 2.5 in a lot of places right now, if that is the buy point for, that, sophisticated money, so to speak. So I do like the money line here. Not my favorite play of bowl season, but the more and more I thought about it, Sam Hartman kind of walking off into the sunset, so to speak, and probably, from my understanding, going to another college this year. It was interesting to hear Dave Clawson talk about that very openly, saying, this is his last game for Wake Forest. I don't know if he'll be playing for another college or the pros, but he's not playing here next year. So, but I think it is telling.
That'd be the most unique situation for a head coach, right? Like to just openly admit that your quarterback is not coming back, even though he's got eligibility left. Like that's got to be weird.
Like,
that's got to be.
He's going to get paid somewhere else, So, but it tells you. But I do think it tells you kind of his allegiances to Wake Forest. Remember, he dealt with the health issues preseason. He was out for a little bit, so. Playing an SEC team, even though that's not a household SEC program, I'm excited for this bowl game, to be honest. I think, I know Missouri's had the opt-outs, as we talked about. Barry Odom being gone, now the head coach here at UNLV is when you look at who's lost coordinators and who, how have teams fared? Look, last night, Baylor fired their defensive coordinator. They fired their safety coach, How do these teams fare when you lose coordinators heading into these bowl games? You look at, back, last weekend, you look at Washington State, lost their D coordinator, lost their O coordinator, and they scored 6 points against a clearly motivated Fresno State team. And I think in a bit of a similar situation where Jake Hayner's going pro, and he's, had already accepted an offer to go to the Senior Bowl, and he was done. But they let him kind of go out with a victory. So I expect to see something similar. And then hopefully on Christmas Day, when I'm opening up presents, I get a little tweet that says Sam Hartman's committed to Notre Dame. I mean, can we just make that happen?
That would be great, wouldn't it? That would be great for all of us. Truly. That would be unbelievable. Keeping our fingers crossed. Tim, thank you so much for coming on the show today, breaking down the bowl games. I'm sure we'll be talking to you throughout the rest of bowl season.
Go Tigers!
I'm going to enjoy your holiday with the family.
Demon Deeks, let's go. All right, guys. See you. Merry Christmas.
Man,
Merry
Tim
Christmas,
is kicking
Tim.
my ass
Appreciate
in this bowl
you.
challenge right now. It's
Make sure
really
to follow
I'm
him
embarrassed.
at one. Make sure to follow him at one Tim Murray on Twitter, co-host of VSiN Primetime 6 to 9 p.m. and College Football Betting Podcast. All right, before we get into our best bets of the day, Gerard, let's talk about our friends at Superbook Sports. Let's bet it. Presented by Superbook Sports. Can you beat Vegas this football season? Superbook gives you the chance every week to go head-to-head with the best odds makers in Las Vegas. No fancy computer algorithms. No one across the pond setting lines for American sports. Just the best team of traders in the business at the Superbook in Las Vegas. Plus, some of the best odds boosts and promo bets in the country. If you're in Arizona, Colorado, Iowa, Nevada, New Jersey, or Tennessee, download the Superbook Sports app or visit superbook.com to start your battle against Vegas. From superbook.com to pickswise.com, who do we got today?
A couple NBA games here. I won't give away the farm, but it's Friday night, so a lot of NBA. Hermantas Nita, Filip Tomic chiming in. 3 NBA games, 2 sides in a total. Have fun. God bless.
Have fun, God bless. And we are on opposite sides again for our play of the day because I am taking Wake -2.5. You're taking Mizzou +2.5. I'm siding with Tim here, Gerard. I'm sorry. I got to do it.
It's okay. I don't blame you. He's killing me in the bowl contest, so I would side with him too. I trust my gut in this spot. The numbers don't matter as much. The analytics don't matter as much. I really don't look into that as much during bowl season. It's all about motivation and who wants to be there. And I think I can question I definitely can question where Sam Hartman's head is at for this game. And I understand that there's a ride off into the sunset mentality, but I do think Eli Drinkwitz, they are going to want this game. He's never won a bowl game. He's been at Mizzou now for 3 years. And at their best, Missouri is infinitely better than Wake Forest. We'll see if that best shows up. But again, it's impossible for them to be at their best because they're without some of their best players. But I still think this Missouri defensive scheme is good. And I don't know. I've been so bad over the last couple of days with these bowl games. I would side with Lauren here, but I have Mizzou in the contest.
No, Jared. No.
I'm dead serious. I'm not telling you to go out and bet the farm on Mizzou. I'm telling you that my instinct tells me that they're going to win this game. But I'm not overly confident about that instinct because over the last couple of days, my instinct with these games has been off. So I'm always honest and transparent about how I'm doing and where I'm at, where my head's at. And my initial gut for this game was Mizzou, especially once I saw the number come off 3, despite the fact that there was all those opt-outs. I thought that was intriguing to me that the market still favored Mizzou, despite all of those motivational factors that you would think are going against them. And then when I dove into it a little bit, I saw Drinkwitz, the fact that he's never won a bowl game. And this was a really good Missouri team this year that battled with some of the best teams in the country. And Wake Forest has not. Wake Forest has not played anyone really, and they haven't really beaten anyone that's that good. So that's just where I'm at for this game. I'll always be honest with you. I don't feel confident about this pick. I hate that all of my sharp friends are against me, but I still think Mizzou is the right side here. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
I wouldn't necessarily consider myself a sharp friend, but Tim Murray, I think, is a sharp tack in the box. But I'm just going with him because purely based, one, on motivation, I really do think this could be Sam Hartman's, like he said, walk into the sunset with it setting and the waves crashing and the oceans there. But I look at the offense that Wake Forest has right now. They rank second in the ACC, like I was saying, with 314.6 passing yards per game. Offense in general averaging 450 passing yards per game. And Sam Hartman has led a team that scores 36.8 points per game on the season. He has the second most touchdown passes in college football over the last 2 years. And like Tim was saying, his top receiver in A.T. Perry is also playing too. And with Missouri, all of the opt-outs, I know they have the stronger defense. They really, really do. Their defense is amazing. They've allowed 337 total yards per game, even in the loaded SEC. They have 36 sacks on the year, second most in the SEC. They're going to be coming for blood when they're looking at Sam Hartman. But with all of their opt-outs this year, I just don't know if we're going to get 100% that Missouri team that made them that defense that they were this season in the SEC. And for that reason, I'm going with Wake Forest and Sam Hartman playing his last game for the Demon Deeks. We'll see how this goes. Or not the Demon Deeks. The Demon Deeks, right? No.
Wake Forest.
It's the Demon Deeks, right? Yeah.
I was
getting confused with Duke for a second and saying Blue Devils, but yeah, the Demon Deeks, his last game in a Demon
Another
Deeks.
ACC bottom feeder that will get to a bowl game with them in a few days.
Yeah, can't even wait. Hold on to the edge of your seats for that one. This is my last show before Christmas, so Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, everyone. Jared, I know you're on the show tomorrow, breaking down all of the NFL games, but I hope everyone has a great holiday weekend, guys, and I'll see you back here on the show on Monday. That's it for us today. Find us on the Pickswise YouTube channel. Go to Pickswise.com. Follow us on Twitter, Jared Smith, Lauren Jabara. Best of luck with your bets this weekend. Let's get it. Let's bet it.